everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Money Talks podcast. I am really excited for today's guest, and I'm going to do a small introduction on her. I have the big honor to be joined by Manuela Glas today. She is a senior partner and senior advisor with over 40 years of global experience in human nature, organizational behavior, and leadership development. She's also an author, a deep thinker, an accredited executive coach. She has guided leaders and organizations worldwide. Her expertise blends business insight, coaching mastery, and a passion for sustainable, human-centered growth. Manuela, thank you so much for being here today, and I hope I could capture your work a little bit in this small introduction.
So thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure for us to have you. So to jump right in, as I just mentioned, like your work spans like sectors and industries, and through your advisory, writing, and client engagements, you've touched many areas. But today we're going to concentrate a bit more on sustainability, which from what we've seen is clearly like a central theme of your work. So I would really love to start with the fundamentals and ask you, like, how did sustainability really enter your journey? How did it spark your interest?
Of course. I mean, how it really started, the sustainability really is like stewardship. And I inherited this like from my father. I grew up with that because he showed me the life of trees, the beehives. He was a beekeeper. He showed me wildlife, nature, and how to be actually in harmony within that natural boundaries that nature provides, and to have respect. That's how it started. But obviously, you can't just be like this. I experienced a shock when they actually clear-cut 3 sites that are very close to us, like at our front door or doorstep, if you want to call it this way. And 2 of these 3 places were places I visited with my father when I was little. So it really hit me. And that actually showed me that there is a real need to become more determined and to speak up, like to address these things.
It's a very beautiful thing that you inherited from your father, I guess. And with that in mind, I would like to ask you, like, also regarding the new generations, how do you feel? Do you think like sustainability is something that everyone should kind of be integrating in each phase of their life, not just like personally, but also when they're educating themselves or in their work? Or do you think it's still something that primarily belongs to the public sphere or those who work directly in the field?
If you look at how long it takes to form like a new law, or that governance keeps up with the development of like business, like governance is really slow. So I think if you look at where you're located, for example, I'm based in Switzerland, they do have like laws that are valid for the whole country. And what I looked at when we started out, what does it mean to be in Switzerland? So you have the federal law, and that actually guides you already, that you have to be respectful towards creation, that you are responsible, that future generations have the same or not less than we have today. And if you come from that point of view, you see it's not only a topic policymakers or governments making people should live by, but like actually everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. And one last thing before we jump into the other segment that we have prepared for today. It's a topic that we're going to be exploring more into detail at a second moment. And I think I'm just going to ask you on general, like, this is actually a question that I love to ask experts like yourself, because the answers are always so personal. So I would really invite you to share like a comment on how optimistic you really are of the progress that we are making, especially on Europe, because I know this is like a enormous topic regarding like sustainability efforts. Just to see like if you are more of a realistic or optimistic in that sense.
I mean, if you look at the global news, that you see, okay, we have wildfires on a lot of places. We have a lot of drought in a lot of places. You could very easily feel overwhelmed and bogged down with the weight that's on everyone.
Mhm.
And what I think that we can do, we have to keep the hope that everything we add or everything we do is there to make like or helps to change to make things better. So if you ask me what my inner sense is, I try to keep up the hope.
Yes, that's important, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so if we want to get a little bit more specific, I think I would like to focus a bit on some recent developments that have been happening in Europe, especially in your country that you live and you come from, Switzerland. And to give some context for our listeners, we will be talking about a solution that seems to be having an increasing momentum right now, and that is carbon capture and storage.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to know what are your thoughts generally on direct air capture?
That's a very good question. I mean, you ask me what I think about it, and this is something I have been monitoring closely over, I think, the past, what is it? I think 3-ish plus years. And I think that if you look at the technical solution of direct air capture and where in the whole supply chain it's being implemented,
Mhm.
you can see it's a band-aid over a band-aid over a band-aid. It doesn't solve the root cause. And we have to be careful that we don't go down the rabbit hole of greenwashing with that kind of thing. Because if you look at what CO2 is
Mhm.
needed for, it's actually the food for our trees, for the greens we grow, vegetables, for the shrubs, for the forests we have. If you look at the whole CO2 levels, they are that high, which means the forests, all the greens, have so much food to eat from. And if they eat, they grow and then they pump because they transform the CO2 into oxygens that we need to breathe. And with direct air capture, we want to capture it, bring it somewhere, and store it in, for example, Norway, in the ocean bed.
Yes.
And if you look at the ocean, what it is right now, it's already too acidified, meaning that the oxygens that should be in the ocean water providing nourishment and food or oxygen for like breathing, the fish already go north. And if we store it in the ocean bed and it can go out from whatever storage we create for that CO2 or by earthquakes or a tsunami that we already have, like at the coast from Russia, that created some movement in the rocks, then I think we cannot guarantee that nothing happens. So what happens if CO2 in that condition is released into the water? It removes CO2. It removes oxygen not only in the water but also on land. And it happened, I think, in 1986 or 7 at the lake in somewhere in Africa. That CO2 came out of the lake, and I think 1,700 and multiple thousand animals died. So 1,700 human beings. Because if CO2 comes in such a concentration, there is no more oxygen. If we don't have any more oxygen, we die and we don't even feel it. This is the huge threat I see when we start to work on that massive scale with direct air capture. This is the one point. The other point is, if you look at what kind of resources the whole machinery uses, the supply chain we need to build up for having it. Only look at the steel, what kind of effort we need to make in order just to make this happen, to remove 0.04% out of the air. It's just, I would say, sorry, crazy. We have to, I mean, we only focus on that 0.04%, what's the air, and we try to remove that little amount out of the air and store it like in tons. somewhere, and we try to even transport it, like Switzerland, Norway is 2,000 plus kilometers one way. So if you would need to have lorries, I calculated it would need like 150,000 lorries a year extra on the motorways. Sorry, that's not sustainable.
That's true.
And the other thing is, if you look at the global debt levels, they are in the trillions. And rather than trying to implement such an expensive and unsustainable, in essence, non-feasible solution, we rather invest the money that we have in something that really helps. And something that really helps is, for example, that we have more forests, more trees, more green, that would naturally regulate the CO2 levels through their growth, and they would also provide oxygen, biodiversity, NNN. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense, and it was very thorough. Thank you so much for the explanation. So I understand that you advocate a little bit more for a natural solution of converting CO2 directly into oxygen through nature. Do you see this as a complementary solution, or kind of a it fits all and we just have to go and try nature?
If you look at what Swiss people would suggest, they would try to find a consensus and allow the technology of direct air capture to be implemented too. But if I look at the place where I live, it's a smallish place, and
Yes.
I grew up like in the next village that has roughly 2,000 people.
Okay.
And it would mean for the place that either we would have 100 lorries with dangerous goods transports going through the village, or that there will be a pipeline built to some train station that would need to be either reopened. And if you look just at the potential danger that this causes, it's a no-go.
Yeah.
Because if you look at what the Brundtland report in 1987 said, the Brundtland report goes about sustainability. And they say, well, we should live according to the precautionary principle. And precautionary principle means do no harm. So if we know all this, and then we keep doing it anyway, with the potential that we cause harm or even death for some life on the planet, why doing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it seems like a unified approach would be kind of the simplest way to go. And I think that answers some important questions, of course, and you are definitely the person to talk about this in practice because of like something that I really want to touch on at your company, like the Glas. And Glas, you have this beautiful initiative that is called the Mother Tree Nursery.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like you to share a little bit about that with us.
Mm-hmm. Happy to. We started the Mother Tree Nursery a long time back. I think somewhere around
2022, I think.
Yeah, then it was registered officially. But I mean, collecting seeds, I started, I think, between 2013 and 2015. And I started collecting seeds because I saw there are these 3 places at my doorstep being clear cut. And I was like, oh my God, this isn't right.
Yeah.
Because you sense the change the clear cutting makes to the environment. So anyway, I started to collect seeds like needle trees and leaf trees, oaks and giant sequoia trees. And then I planted them in little pots, and I had no idea how long it takes until they sprout, how do they grow. And since then, we have collected more than 500 seeds and planted them. Currently, they are in container pots of 3 liters, so very small still. Mm-hmm. And this also shows what is really needed for a tree in order to sprout.
Yeah.
How much time does it need to become that big? It's 2 or 3 years, depending on the climate or where it stands. So if we say we cut down a tree, for example, that's 80 years old, we need at least 80 little ones to cover the potential that one big tree had.
Yeah.
Is that enough information for the mother tree nursery? Or no, I have to add something. Just give me a second. The mother tree nursery, the name comes from the research from Susanne Simard. She's from the Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada area. And she did a lot of thorough and really important research in the field of forests. And she showed that the forest actually has mother trees, like really old, healthy trees that hold the environment and feed the little ones and also other species of trees. And they hold the biosphere. And if you do something, you have to be mindful that you let those big trees standing so that they can ensure continuity. So no clear cutting. You have to have a certain amount of trees in order to hold that whole forest stable.
Perfect.
Yeah, that
Thank
was
you.
it.
Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome.
I guess we kind of understood by now that you have a very holistic approach with your work, but I guess I would also want to know what are some other principles that guide your work with regards to healthy governance, risk advisory, and so on.
Mm-hmm. I have to look at my notes here because I made a huge list of notes and I don't want to miss anything because I
I'm
think
sure
it's
there's a lot.
important to be shared. So
Sure.
the fundament is the nature of law. So what does nature say is the law we have to adhere to? Because we live on a planet and the planet is nature. And I wrote something about it. I think it was in 1999 for my uh, first education there. And the other one is that you have to look at the law from the country you're in. And during my work, I did some research about the law from Switzerland itself, and it actually really starts well. It says, well, it's the federal law I'm referring to. It starts with God the Almighty. And I thought, okay, not everyone believes in God, and some people might be offended. Some call it nature, some call it Allah, some call it any name. But essentially, it's love, if you boil it down to. So there is a higher order for everything that happens on the planet. And you say the guiding principle, just to name a few that are mentioned in the Swiss federal law, it's the responsibility towards creation, democracy meaning people decide what's being done in the environment, peace. Peace means the ability to live a life that is undisturbed and in harmony with nature, being respectful, meaning don't intervene, don't go there and just do something. You have to ask for consent, and responsibility towards the future, meaning 7 generations. 7 generations could be up to 500 years. And if you tie it back to how long a tree needs in order to grow, I mean, an oak tree can become 1,000 years, for example, and a giant sequoia 3,000 years. You know what kind of horizon humans originally are made to adhere to? Even though I know that, I mean, Wall Street would think about overnight or in a few minutes and not like 3,000 years. So these are two extreme actually clashing.
Wow, very beautiful. Okay, now we'll have to move on a little bit and get into something a favorite here at Money's Talks, and you also touched a little bit on that with your work, I guess. And but we want to tie it a little bit to sustainability, so we will talk about investment now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question about that would be, what we talked about all of this and healthy governance. What role do you think private market investment plays in all of this?
I mean, if you look at private market investment, it's investment coming from private companies, meaning they are not stock traded.
Yeah.
Meaning they don't oblige the demands of stock market and AI programmed things and or investors' fickle opinions, because someone could just take out the money and need you as a business be in the interesting position to really move money fast. So private market investment can choose wisely. That's one advantage. They can do their due diligence and see, okay, in what kind of endeavor do I want to invest? What do I want to support? In order that you go according to the sustainable principle, like the precautionary principle, do no harm. And they also can define their ROI, meaning what do I really want to get out of it, the return on investment, and allow enough time to generate a sustainable and a long-lasting ROI, or even do good via philanthropy. That's something. And I see that PMI, for example, interfering with governance can be really tricky, because governance is based on democracy. I mean, in Switzerland, I'm talking Switzerland. I don't know how, for example, something in Pakistan works. I focus on that thing. So if you have PMI and then going into governance, for example, by lobbying, it really gets tricky, because democracy, meaning it's made by the people and not by money. So this is something we have to keep in mind. And yeah, does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, and it actually partially also answers my second question that I had related to investment, because we know that there's a lot of talk around the ESGs, but not all of it really translates to real impact and actual impact. Yeah. And I think maybe I would like to know from you, what kind of questions do you think investors should be asking? Or what I mean with that is, like, do you think it's more sustainable for investors to kind of consider the way that they influence the management of their portfolio companies, or focus more on redirecting their capital to more green tech solutions in that sense?
I think that's a very good observation you bring there. What do I do with my capital? Do I try to influence the management, or do I try to change what already is, or do I go somewhere where it's already right? So these are two different kind of conditions that I think you mentioned. Changing something that's already is can be really, really tricky, because you know how happy people are with change. They don't like change. So if you as an investor come there and say, hey, you have to change, there is a lot of friction probably that you need to take into account until that thing changes. I mean, the Titanic, you cannot just steer there and then it goes left. It needs a long time to just move a few centimeters and a long distance. But if you go somewhere where the environment is already right, then it's easier, I would say, because then you don't have to take into account, okay, here I have to change that much, and here I just place my money, and I know management is doing the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And ESG, sorry,
please go ahead.
And ESG actually stands for environmental, social, and governance, and refers to a set of standards. And the standard thing is, it's also, or mainly a standard, it's a representative, how things should be done. And standards always boil down, if you look at it, to mediocrity, because it's a standard. It's not like outstanding, or it's a standard. One line we agree upon, we are doing it like this, like a process you have to follow. And it's an abstract. ESG does never, if you read a number on a sheet, it never says, oh, social is 50 and environmental is 20. What does it mean? What does it really say? And it's a controlling accounting tool. So it's detached from what's really going on there.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe moving a little bit now again onto the more personal side of things. I mean, you do have with your work, you do touch a lot of layers of leadership and transformation. Maybe I would want to know, like, what's the most rewarding part of your work these days?
The most rewarding thing of what I'm doing. I think that what feeds me the most, nourishes me the most, is continue understanding. Continue understanding, in a sense, do the due diligence. Hey, what is this, and why is this such a way? How it is it that it comes like this? What's behind it? Look behind the obvious. This is something I really love doing, continue understanding. In addition to that, I love writing and publishing. And I love doing that because if you write and publish, you can make people aware about certain things and addressing the issues. And also like helping implementing holistic solutions. And I think that that's really important, because if you look at the industry or the industrialization that happened over the past 250 years, it was always like little points we looked at, and we always changed little points. And that's not how it works. I mean, you have to have a healthy fundament in order to build upon it. And that's what I'm trying to raise more awareness about. Yeah.
Perfect. I could not think of any other way to conclude this conversation any more beautifully. But out of protocol, I would also ask you if there is one last thing, one last message that you would like to leave for whoever is listening to this podcast. It could be regarding this new area of climate, solutions, complexity, whatever you desire.
So the one message I would have to share, I think it's a bit longer than one message. So if you allow me to elaborate a little bit, my advice would be like, take the needed time to think and feel and metabolize, digest what is really going on a deep level. Try to figure that out. Understand what it means to be human. What does it mean to be alive as a human being? I would suggest to answer the questions for yourself. Who am I? I mean, what am I made of physically? I do belong to the human species, but I have to share the planet with 8 million other species too. What is my purpose? What do I want to reach during the time span I'm allowed to be on that planet Earth? What kind of difference do I want to make? I mean, Dr. Jane Goodall, do you know her? She's the doctor from the chimpanzees. She did some really good research. And she said that we always have an impact on our environment, the way we are, the way we speak. And it's very important to decide what kind of difference, what kind of impact do I want to make. The other question is that I would decide for myself is, what is living a good life for me? In that location that I'm in, what does it mean to live a good life? And that I think the most difficult question everyone has to answer, what happens when I'm dead? When I die. What happens when I die? What happens afterwards? Is there an afterlife? And how should this go on when I'm not here anymore? And if you look from that perspective to the fundament that we all have, it's like, what's the ontological imperative that we humans have to ensure? Meaning, what has to be there so that we can live? It's a healthy soil that we can grow our food. We have to have intact forest so that we have the oxygen and the water balanced. And of course, clean water. That's what I would like give as something to think about.
Wow, those are amazing messages. Thank you so much for sharing that, Manuela. And this was thought as, like we've already mentioned this before, like a very limited kind of series that we do have the small conversations with our colleagues and our friends and things that we want to share with the audience. But maybe we get a chance to talk a little bit more into detail and maybe elaborate when things get a little bit more progressive with the world and everything is going on. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Who wants to reach out to Manuela and maybe have a one-on-one with her or make use of her services, her amazing services and her knowledge, we will share all of her socials here. So thank you so much, and we will see you in another episode of Money's Talks. Thank you, Manuela, so much.
Thank you very much.